Chapter 27 to 28. The Wisdom of Mortals. D. We are not the chosen ones, but we are the masters of our own fate. Praise those who are good to us, and destroy those who are against us. What the hell? How did an inherent skill suddenly appear? Shirou couldn't help but be surprised as he examined his attribute panel, a feature brought about by the Holy Grail. It analyzed his body's condition and formed data that could be easily understood by the brain. However, he remembered that when he first fused with the Saint Graph, all of his inherent skills were inherited from Emiya. Now there was an inexplicable additional skill. Could this be a cheat? Shirou wondered to himself. Spartacus's attack had nearly incapacitated his left arm, reminding him of the harsh reality that transmigrants like himself were not special. They were simply surviving in a different place. However, the appearance of this new skill couldn't help but spark fantastical thoughts in Shirou's mind. He thought of the online transmigration novels he had read before, where the protagonist starts off with cheats, becomes a bully, and the female lead falls in love with him even after he kills her whole family. He remembered how exciting he found these novels in middle school, but later realized how toxic they were. But the thought of it might be happening to him filled him with excitement. However, this Wisdom of Mortals skill was just a D rank and did not seem to be very impressive. The most pressing question now was, what practical use does this skill have? Shirou was perplexed. He didn't possess Gilgamesh's powerful skills, clairvoyance and Shanakba Imuru, nor did he have Merlin's vast knowledge, so he was unable to understand the purpose of this skill. But it didn't matter. He still had a dependable teacher by his side. With that, Shirou quickly lay down on his bed and prepared to reach out to Skathakni. She was truly a great teacher, always available no matter the time of day or night. Whenever he fell asleep, she would appear in his dream on time, just like a high school homeroom teacher. Hold on, Shisho!" Shirou called out as Skathak once again raised her spears, ready to pierce his body. "No waiting, let me poke a few holes first." Although she said something so willful, Skathak's intention was only to scare Shirou, and she was still quite gentle. She lowered her weapon and adopted a listening posture, ready to hear her student's question. Shirou, now at ease, shared his doubts with Skathak. "Isn't it obvious?" Skathak leaned forward, her small face bearing a smile as she looked at Shirou. "What do you mean?" Shirou replied with a look of confusion. "The Holy Grail uses magic to gather data on the servant and presents it in a format that your brain can comprehend. You should be able to understand the specifics of this skill," Skathak explained. "But I still don't understand it. It just says, Wisdom of Mortals. How am I supposed to understand it? Is it just mocking me as a mortal? That can't be right. Can you, my dear Shisho, explain its purpose to me? Is it for amplifying strength, enhancing strategy? Or like your Wisdom of Dun Scaith, does it allow for mastery of nearly all skills?" Shirou asked eagerly. Skathak let out a chuckle before shifting the conversation. "Shirou, do you know who makes up the largest population in the world?" "Obviously it's normal people," Shirou replied without hesitation. "And what about the role of normal people on the stage of heroes?" Skathak continued, not giving Shirou a chance to respond. "It's to be saved by heroes, to be killed by heroes, and to be led by heroes. In history and biographies, we hardly find any mention of normal people. They are referred to only in general terms like villagers, soldiers, or farmers. The Wisdom of Mortals is just that, mortal wisdom. So what kind of blessings do you think it holds?" Skathak said, musing on the topic. "So it's actually useless? Just a cruel irony that I, a mortal, have stumbled upon the stage of heroes? Oh, I can feel the deep malice from the Holy Grail," Shirou exclaimed, sounding defeated. "Also, how did this happen? I don't recall having this inherent skill before," Shirou queried, seeking answers. "Who knows?" "You don't know, Shisho," Shirou said, looking surprised. "I am not omniscient," Skathak replied with a gentle smile. "Well, I should have expected this. I'll just have to accept it." "I'm going back now," Shirou said, taking a deep breath and trying to steady his mind. "Leaving so soon? Have you forgotten something, my weakest disciple?" Skathak said, narrowing her eyes and raising the spear in her hand. "Please have mercy. I still need to prepare for the upcoming Holy Grail War," Shirou quickly begged, gesturing with his hand. If it had been any other heroic spirit, They would have ignored Shirou's plea, but Scathach was known to be gentle. She nodded and said, "All right, but with this truancy, the next lesson will be doubled next time." I understand," Shirou said, flustered as he quickly escaped through the door of the dream. What an irritable disciple. If he had waited any longer, I might have let slip some information. Scathach chuckled. The wisdom of mortals, the wisdom of humanity. Heroes and great people may lead mortals, but it's always mortals who make history. It is truly mortals who can make heroes shine, and it's also mortals who can bury heroes in history forever. Scathach laughed gently. She almost slipped up just now, but managed to hold back in time. She has already graduated from this world. It's better for her to keep her mouth shut around students who are still studying in this world. Otherwise, if she directly gave the answers, it would be too disrespectful for those students who are still in the process of learning and would deprive them of the opportunity to think and grow. In fact, after giving Shirou a reminder last time, Scathach has deeply reflected on herself and realized that this way she deprived Shirou of the opportunity to think and grow on his own. But, despite everything, I still feel compelled to remind my foolish disciple, Scathach said with a laugh. However, her expression then became one of confusion and concern. But why does Shirou possess something like this? I thought his Saint Graph did not have this kind of thing. Could it be because of his unique body that it has undergone a change? Even Scathach, who possesses the wisdom of Dunscaith, occasionally encounters things she cannot understand. But she found it acceptable. It means her foolish disciple is carving his own path. The woman known as Shirou by her disciple showed a slight smile of satisfaction. Awakened from the dream, Shirou stretched his body and checked the time. It was 3:27 in the afternoon. This was good. It was not yet nightfall, so he could confidently make some preparations. As he walked down the street, Shirou noticed that despite it being October, the weather had already become quite cold. But he realized that the indifference between people was even colder than the weather, like a cold wind blowing in from Siberia. But even so, there were still many kind-hearted citizens in the city. As he walked not far from the park, Shirou saw a man in a black coat climb to the top of a large tree, pluck a red balloon, and then give it to a little girl who was waiting expectantly by the tree. "Thank you, uncle," the little girl said, taking the balloon and showing a bright smile. "You're welcome," the man in the black coat replied, avoiding physical contact with the little girl, perhaps because he feared that his own impurities would tarnish the child's purity. He was a kind and warm-hearted uncle. But when Shirou saw the man in the black coat, he shuddered as if he had been electrified, his expression stiffening. He was certain of it, there was no mistake. The man who had committed atrocities in the name of righteousness. Emiya Kiritsugu, a man who firmly believed in his own righteousness, but ultimately was betrayed by it. Shirou lowered his head, his face laced with anger, as walked away. He knew that Kiritsugu's presence in Fuyuki City meant that the Holy Grail War was getting closer, and he feared that it would begin tonight. He had to hurry. Shirou returned to his home, and from under the bed in his room, he retrieved the Ultraman outfit. Shirou had obtained this Ultraman suit by taking a large sum of money from Fujimaru Chiyo's pouch without her permission. Taking money without permission is considered as a bad behavior, similar to stealing. But for the sake of survival, he can't let these things weigh on his mind anymore. Besides, though his body may be young, his soul is mature and adult, and taking money cannot be considered as stealing, it's just borrowing. After obtaining the suit, Shirou put on the blue contact lenses and went to a hair salon, where he used suggestion to get black hair for free. He then returned to his base, put on the elevator shoes and the Ultraman suit. Looking at himself in the mirror, Shirou laughed bitterly. He knew that if everything went according to plan, he would have to wear this suit around for at least 7 days in order to avoid exposing his true identity. The fatestaynight clearly states that a Holy Grail War lasts for 7 nights. However, in reality, the duration of the war may vary depending on the situation. He donned his trusty black cloak, enveloping his entire body. With a bitter smile, he acknowledged that his preparation time before the war was far too brief. Being a novice magus and still just a child, he had no connections and no one to provide him with information. He could only rely on himself. Given his limited abilities, he knew that his options were limited. He thought to himself, perhaps I should go to the Ryudu temple and pray to Buddha. I've heard that the temple is home to a person adept at fooling people. Maybe he could say something that would help me feel more at ease. Shirou considered the idea, but ultimately rejected it with a bitter smile. Not only was he an atheist, but he had never burned incense or worshipped Buddha before. Even if there were deities or Buddha in this world, it was unlikely that they would pay attention to an ordinary person like himself, who only sought their help when in need. Furthermore, the presence of the Greater Grail beneath the Ryudu temple made it an unwise choice for him to go there. So what his future holds is uncertain. Whether he will live or die, whether he will survive, it all depends on how he adapts to the situation in the war. Despite the overwhelming odds of defeat that weighed heavily on him, the advice given to him by Scathach had given Shirou, an ordinary modern person, a chance to emerge victorious. He was determined to use all of his wisdom as an ordinary person to seize that chance to survive. However, I really don't want to have to work hard. I want to win without putting in effort, Scathach Ni. He let out a sigh and felt disheartened. But what could he do? Scathach simply smiled and refused his request. Being lazy was also one of the worst qualities an ordinary person could possess. With time still on his side, Shirou compiles a list of information he already knows. First, the Matu family is headed by Byakuya, and their servant is Spartacus. The command seals have already been used twice, and Spartacus sees himself as the protector of the weak. Second, the Tosaka family is still led by Tokiomi, with Gilgamesh as their servant. He already knows Shirou's identity, but it is unclear how he feels about him. The alliance status of Kire Kotomine with Tokiomi is uncertain, and Shirou is uncertain about whether his servant is Hassan of the 100 Faces or not. Third, Emiya Kiritsugu has already appeared in Fuyuki City. The status of his command seals has not been confirmed. It is unknown whether he is the master of Einsburn or not, and the identity of his servant is also unknown. Fourth, besides Waver and Iskandar, who have been observed and confirmed, the identities of the masters and servants of the other groups have not been confirmed. Everything remains unknown. Fifth, the demi-servant occupying the role of caster has a different aura and combat power from that of a normal servant. It is best to avoid direct combat as much as possible. His fake master is Ryunosuke, and he can use Ryunosuke's death as temporary concealment when things get bad. Sixth, whether the course of the Fourth Holy Grail War will follow the plot of Fate Zero is still uncertain. Seventh, the reason for the change in the timeline is currently unknown, and the cause of the butterfly effect is also unknown. Shirou, with a better understanding of his situation, realized the importance of confirming if the other groups have undergone changes as well. He lifted his head slightly to glance out the window at the setting sun and sighed. Suddenly, his body jolted violently, like a mouse encountering a rat. He trembled. Shirou stood up abruptly. His eyes locked onto the distant buildings. "This aura," he muttered, recognizing the same feeling he had encountered not long ago with a heroic spirit. Without a doubt, this aura belonged to a servant. As servants can sense the aura of other servants, Shirou, who had absorbed the Saint Graph and become a demi-servant, was able to detect this aura as well. Shirou thought to himself, "Has it begun already? My death war?" "Don't fuse with the Saint Graph yet," he thought. "Go and take a look. Investigate and confirm how much change has occurred in the participating groups." With that in mind, he put on black gloves, a leather suit, and wrapped himself in a black cloak. 3 layers of disguise. Shirou left the room and crept through the twilight. He knew that Scathach had sharp eyes, and without her reminder of his biggest core advantage, he would have given up and waited for death. But now, knowing he still had a chance of victory, he wouldn't give up without a fight. If he could survive, why would he want to die? Shirou discovered the source of the servant's aura in the waterfront park of the Shinto district in Fuyuki City. Though it seemed to align with the direction of Fate Zero, he did not dare to let his guard down, for human arrogance is often the precursor to foolishness. As he searched for the aura, he found its source to be a man. The man was dressed in blue leather armor and held red and yellow spears. Without taping into the Saint Graph, the distance was too far for Shirou to see the man's face clearly with his normal eyesight. But with such distinctive clothing, Shirou, being a worthy fan, recognized the man as the Irish Fionn Knight, Diarmuid Ua Dwybne, the leader of the heroic warriors in Celtic mythology, a man with 2 spears. Shirou realizes that he cannot engage in a direct confrontation with this man, as his attributes, with the exception of their shared tragic fate of having bottom-tier luck, far surpass his own, particularly his A+ level agility. However, one thing that can be confirmed is that the person who appeared as Lancer is indeed Diarmuid Ua Dwybne. This raises the question, is his master still Lord El Meloy? Shirou is uncertain, but decides to not reveal himself, and certainly not to fuse with a Saint Graph, as doing so would reveal his position and make him a target for elimination by Diarmuid. To engage in a fight against Diarmuid, who has an average attribute of around B level, with Shirou's line of E attributes, would be a suicide mission. However, if Diarmuid is here, it is highly likely that the warehouse battle of Fate Zero can be reenacted. This would provide an excellent opportunity for Shirou to observe and collect information, as the warehouse battle on the dock was the first group appearance of the Fourth Holy Grail War. Additionally, with Caster replaced by him and Berserker in the open, it would be an opportunity to gain valuable knowledge. As time passed, the fiery sunset on the horizon eventually set, and the dark night enveloped the land. Diarmuid's servant aura became stronger. It was even detectable to Shirou, a mortal who had never participated in any battles and could sense the provocation in it. It was clear that Diarmuid was trying to lure other servants to reveal themselves. Shirou didn't care whether the other participants would be tempted by Diarmuid's provocation or not. However, he knew for certain that he would not reveal himself under any circumstances. No matter who the servants are in this Holy Grail War, he knew that he could not defeat any of them, not even the weakest attribute assassin, as his own attributes were a row of E. The only chance he would have is to bully weaker masters like Waver. As time passed by, 2 female figures came into view in the distance. One of the women was dressed in high-end white fur autumn clothes with snow-white hair, giving her the appearance of a snow elf. The other was a blonde girl, dressed in a blue dress with armor, her hand empty, but it seemed as though she was holding an invisible sword. Upon seeing these 2 women, Shirou breathed a sigh of relief. The presence of the Saber group confirms that they have not been affected by the butterfly effect of the timeline. Without seeing the command seals, it is impossible to confirm whether the master is Emiya Kiritsugu or Irisviel von Einsburn, but the servant is confirmed to be Artoria. As Shirou looked at the poster girl of the Fate series, Artoria, he didn't feel the excitement of a fan. Instead, he felt a sense of relief. Indeed, for mortals, compared to the poster girl he once fought for, life is the most precious thing. Are you the one who emitted the aura and challenged me? Yes, I am. From your stance, I assume you are Saber? Perhaps. But from the appearance of your dual spears, you are undoubtedly Lancer. It's pointless to hide it. Your grip on the invisible weapon has already revealed that you are Saber. As a knight, not being able to reveal my name is regrettable. But let us begin, Saber. Across time and space, for our own honor and desires, let us decide the outcome. That is my intention. Artoria launched an attack against Diarmuid without hesitation. The 2 fought fiercely. Shirou, who was concealed nearby, silently calculated. He had no interest in watching the intense battle between the 2, as without the fusion with the Saint Graph, his eyes were just those of an ordinary 6-year-old boy, unable to keep up with the fast-paced offense and defense, making it pointless to watch. The identities of all the servants, except for the assassin, have been confirmed either directly or indirectly. It appears that the butterfly effect, which has hastened the timeline, has only impacted Caster and Berserker.